What's up, maniacs? My name is Mex. I'm a wrestling fan, a wrestling enthusiast, a WrestleManiac if you will. And today we are talking about Raw. We had a really emotional ending to Raw, and alongside with the emotion that went with it, just something that I guess was a bit unbelievable, but we all kind of knew it was coming. You know what I'm talking about. We're gonna get into it very soon, so make sure you stay tuned. Right here at WrestleManiac UK, I discuss everything that is WWE and AEW. So if this sounds like the place for you, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that you get notified every time I drop a new video. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's get into the review. So we're gonna kick off with the main event, and Kevin Owens was taking on Randy Orton. Obviously, Kevin Owens and Ric Flair had a bit of a thing last week, and Kevin Owens was looking to put a stop to Randy Orton before his match at SummerSlam with Drew McIntyre. It was a really good match, high intensity. Both men brought their best. A lot of stunners that were teased, a lot of RKOs that were teased, but in the end, Randy Orton got the victory with an RKO here. And just as he was celebrating and him and Ric Flair were about to leave the ring, Randy Orton took a microphone and he asked Ric Flair, "Look, Rick, I've just got some things to say. Do you mind sticking around?" Ric Flair said, "Yeah, no problem." And at this point, Randy Orton turned on Ric Flair. He was telling Ric Flair, "I've got a right to be angry with you. You put me in a situation against Kevin Owens because of your ego. You're not the Ric Flair that I once looked up to 20 years ago. I used to love that man. I used to idolize that man. And now you're an attention-grabbing whore," which was incredible because I didn't even believe they said that on TV. But we move. Randy Orton proceeded to just literally rip apart Ric Flair, and Ric Flair, who I guess is a known crier in the industry, he wasn't tearing up at this point. Randy Orton kept making jibes like, "Are you gonna cry?" and all that kind of stuff, but Ric Flair wasn't actually crying at this point. Ric Flair then took the mic and told him, "You know, I am everything you say I am. I'm a shadow of the man that I used to be, but I just kind of want to hang out with Randy Orton. At this point, I want to be in Randy Orton's corner. I'm Charlotte's dad. I'm not Ric Flair sort of thing. I'm not the guy that, yeah, you looked up to, but you know, I care about you. I love you. You're the greatest. I want you to eclipse my 16 world titles, not John Cena. It's not John Cena's record. It's Ric Flair's record, and I want you to be the one to eclipse it. And I just want to be in your corner at SummerSlam when you beat Drew McIntyre." And after this impassioned speech by Ric Flair, it looked like Randy Orton and Ric Flair had buried the hatchet. They were hugging and stuff like that, and looked like they were about to leave the ring, when all of a sudden, as Ric Flair turned around, Randy Orton gave him one of those low blow. Ric Flair fell to his knees. Randy Orton, as he does, over Ric Flair's body, caressing his head, whispering probably some unpleasantries into Ric Flair's ear, and then all of a sudden you see Randy Orton take up the corner. While Ric Flair is trying to get himself back up to his feet, Randy Orton runs across and gives him the punt. Now, we don't actually see the punt on TV because WWE are still doing the production failures from Retribution's attack on the generator, on the electrical generator, so the lights are still flickering, and when Randy Orton goes for the punt, the lights go out, they come back on, and obviously Ric Flair is laid out completely. We did hear a sound, but we didn't see anything. Again, Randy Orton's whispering things inside Ric Flair's ear when all of a sudden referees come down, officials come down, and Drew McIntyre comes down first actually to chase away Randy Orton from the scene. As much as I don't want to admit it, I think Randy Orton is going to become WWE champion at SummerSlam. He is just doing fantastic work right now, and I think it's very hard for him to lose from this position of what he's being built up to. Drew McIntyre had a great promo last week, but this week was a bit passive in all of this, was a bit on the back burner. We didn't see much of him. I think this is a really strong turning point. Now, of course, maybe Ric Flair could get involved at SummerSlam to help Drew retain, but I do think that, you know, this is looking like a Randy Orton win. It really is looking like a Randy Orton win. And you know, there is other factors that make me believe this. I still do think that WWE want to give Drew McIntyre a big win in front of a crowd. If Randy Orton picks up the belt here and carries it maybe to, I don't know, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, until when a crowd is possibly back, and then Drew wins it back off him, that's probably what WWE want. I still think they have a lot invested in Drew, and this isn't a reflection on Drew that Drew's done badly or anything over this time. Drew's been excellent in this situation with no crowds and this different approach to wrestling. But things might just be a bit smoother with a heel as champion at this time, where we don't need like a positive crowd reception. And like I say, Randy Orton's just been doing great work, so I wouldn't be surprised if he does take that belt off Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam. But a really good storyline that these two are playing out on TV, and I can't wait to see what's next in store. So something that wasn't so good on Raw this week, in fact two things: Raw Underground and Retribution. They only started this 1 week ago. How have they got so cold on it already? Raw Underground. Now, in fact, one thing I did like about Raw Underground is their exposure to these NXT talents, these developmental talents. Again, we saw Dabba-Kato looking dominant. We saw Arturo, that for those that watch NXT, I don't know if that was his name on NXT now that I think about it, but he was this like Brazilian martial arts guy on NXT whenever he did pop up, and he was very good and dominant on Raw Underground as well. We also saw Shayna Baszler on Raw Underground this week as well. But nothing really advanced Raw Underground this week, if you ask me. And definitely the Hurt Business, them coming in and taking over Raw Underground, they weren't affiliated. They didn't even show up on Raw Underground this week. It was back to Shane McMahon kind of calling the shots and things like that. Are we really doing Raw Underground, or are we dropping it already? I feel like although it had a lot of mixed reviews last week, it was a talking point and it could have really kicked on this week. But again, it's like we've dropped the ball on Raw Underground. And as for Retribution, in my last video from SmackDown last week, I said that Retribution reminded me of a bunch of teenagers just going out and causing mischief. And that is exactly what they are now. They threw a cylinder block through a window, through a glass door. They turned over a car, apparently. I don't know with what machinery or just them, and they were standing on top of the car and celebrating. This isn't cool. It's not wrestling. It's not dominant, that's for sure. When are they going to start laying attacks to maybe wrestlers or actual people in the hierarchy? WWE officials attacking Vince McMahon himself. If they attacked Vince McMahon's limousine or something, maybe that's saying something. If they maybe go to Stamford, Connecticut and attack the WWE headquarters, that's maybe saying something. But breaking a glass window and turning over a random car, it's like they're going cold on these guys. This idea of Retribution, Raw Underground as well, nothing advanced here. Nothing advanced. In fact, these were maybe steps back and rewinding, missteps in fact. Really wasn't happy with what I saw from Retribution and Raw Underground. And unfortunately, everything that people said last week about these two things not lasting long, Retribution and Raw Underground, is looking like it's gonna be true. Right, so I'm gonna run through the rest of the matches and segments on the card, but before I do, guys, if you are enjoying this review, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. Please like the video, it's thoroughly appreciated and does great things for this channel. To kick off the show, we had a contract signing. Dominic Mysterio signing his official WWE contract as a superstar and then signing for the match at SummerSlam. Samoa Joe was the intermediary in all of this and said that, I can't get involved. WWE have threatened my job if I get involved here, so I've just got to mediate. But Samoa Joe was really taking shots at Seth Rollins. I can't wait for the Dominic Mysterio feud with Seth Rollins to be finished because I think we're getting Joe back, guys. I don't want to announce any false news, but I think Samoa Joe is coming back and we're gonna get Samoa Joe versus Seth Rollins, and it looks like a great one. After the contract signing, Seth Rollins was taking on Humberto Carrillo, made quick work of him and won the match. And following this, I think it was Murphy that started an attack on Dominic Mysterio that was still ringside, dragged him into the ring, and Seth Rollins and Murphy battered him. They gave him a real good beating, and I kept looking over every time the camera was on that side of the ring. I kept looking over to see Samoa Joe gonna do something. I know WWE have threatened his job, but is he going to act? If you were watching closely, you would have seen that Samoa Joe had actually stopped commentating at this point, and it was just Byron and Tom Phillips that were actually doing the commentary during this beating. Samoa Joe was within himself, probably getting so angry. At one point, Seth Rollins and Murphy tied up Dominic Mysterio in the ropes and were lashing him. Guys, they were lashing him to bits with kendo sticks. He really had welts all over his body, but he really proved how tough he was, and I'm actually looking forward to SummerSlam. It looks like Seth Rollins has also set up some type of stipulation that Dominic Mysterio can use any kind of weapon during the match, just so he has a chance of beating Seth Rollins. So Their SummerSlam match is heating up nicely and I'm looking forward to it. Next up, we had Angelo Dawkins versus Andrade. Obviously, Montez Ford is still out with the poisoning that took place last week. This was a pretty good, solid match. At one point, Zelina Vega was on the apron trying to get involved and distract Angelo Dawkins until Bianca Belair ran down to the ring and pulled Zelina Vega off the apron. Angelo Dawkins got the win with a cash out. I guess that's what he calls his spine buster, like a spine buster type of move. And then Zelina Vega got thrown into the ring immediately by Bianca Belair, and then they were to have a match. It's not often we see Zelina Vega in these positions of actually having matches, but she was really good, and we could see Samoa Joe. Anytime a submission was taking place in this match, Samoa Joe was absolutely smiling and grinning. You could hear the excitement in his voice when he saw Zelina Vega put on moves like an octopus and things like that. But again, a really good showing for Bianca Belair, who even at one point military pressed Zelina Vega. Not that military pressing Zelina Vega is particularly difficult because of how small she is, but it was from the position that she was in where she just turned it into a military press and just threw Zelina Vega. In the end, Bianca Belair won with a KOD, and Charlie Caruso got in the ring afterwards and asked about the condition of Montez Ford, where Angelo Dawkins said, look, we are still the Street Profits and we will still be defending these titles, the tag team titles, at SummerSlam. A really good segment, and I was just thinking to myself when I was watching it, we don't often see tag teams involved in such a feud. It's just usually, you know, this is the #1 contender and they will fight the champion. So this is really like a feud that means something and has really taken off, and I can't wait for the SummerSlam match now. We had a segment in the VIP lounge where Hurt Business were there and saying, you know, everything that happened last week in terms of the lighting and stuff, and MVP losing the United States Championship is a sham, and that MVP didn't actually lose to Apollo, he lost to the lights. Apollo Crews came out and basically said, look, you're complaining that the lights went out and that's why you lost. At SummerSlam, it's going to be you versus me for the United States Championship, and I'm going to put your lights out. So strong words from Apollo there, and then he went on to have a match with Shelton Benjamin, which I thought would be a routine win for the United States Champion, but due to a Bobby Lashley distraction, Shelton Benjamin actually picks up the win here. And just as Bobby Lashley then gets into the ring and looks to put on the full Nelson, MVP actually begs him not to and says, Bobby, please, I need this guy in 100% condition for our match in SummerSlam so that he turns up and I can beat him for the United States Championship. Bobby Lashley lets Apollo Crews go, but then Apollo Crews delivers an enziguri to MVP before running out from the ring. Come SummerSlam, I would expect Apollo Crews to retain here, but you can never tell with the Hurt Business. And like I've said in recent videos, all these men are doing a really good job right now. Something I didn't care about so much was Viking Raiders and Ricochet and Cedric Alexander teaming up against Tozawa and his ninjas. Why is Ricochet and Cedric Alexander involved in this? Or the Viking Raiders? Like, come on, this 24/7 title scene, we don't need these guys involved. These are world-class athletes, and WWE are currently saying they are looking for new stars to build the company around and stuff like that. You've got stars in Ricochet and Cedric Alexander, and this is what you're doing with them. This match wasn't long. The Viking Raiders and Ricochet and Cedric Alexander were dispatching of the ninjas one by one until one ninja refused to go into the ring. Akira Tozawa tried to tell him to go, didn't want to go. Akira Tozawa and this particular ninja jumped off the apron and went to collect the 24/7 championship, whilst one of the ninjas in the ring was actually being pinned, and only when they were leaving and going up the ramp, the ninja rolled up Akira Tozawa, won the 24/7 championship, and we found out, well, it was pretty obvious that that ninja was R-Truth. So R-Truth is now a 38-time winner of the 24/7 championship, I believe. Yeah, it is what it is. In a continuation of their growing feud, we had Liv Morgan taking on Peyton Royce. Ruby Riott and Billie Kay were ringside for this match. And although their first match back was a success, the Riott Squad that is, this one, not so much. Billie Kay got on the apron at one point, and as Ruby Riott got on the apron to kind of chase her off, she caused a bit of a distraction to Liv Morgan, and Peyton Royce laid that beautiful finisher she has on Liv Morgan. She calls it the deja vu and got the win here. So after the match, Ruby Riott got into the ring and tried to console Liv Morgan and tell her, you know, it wasn't my fault, Billie Kay was coming to attack you, all that kind of stuff. Liv Morgan wasn't really trying to hear it. So still some work to be done on the newly reformed Riott Squad. Last but not least, in a banger of a match, we had Asuka versus Bayley, and obviously the stipulation here was if Asuka beat Bayley, she would face Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship at SummerSlam. Guys, this was the match of the show. If you haven't seen it, you have to go and watch it. Best wrestling match on the show. Really was a submission match after a while because Bayley started working the ankle of Asuka and it really became a technical wrestling match, which again Samoa Joe was absolutely loving on commentary. He made me laugh so much during the show. I love the way on the side as well how Sasha Banks had laid out all of the Golden Role Models championships on the side of the apron, really making them look like stars and showing Asuka throughout the match what she was here fighting for. But Asuka didn't really need any further motivation. She was fighting for what they done to Kairi, and she was fighting for her Raw Women's Championship back, and she won the match in the end with an Asuka lock. So Asuka versus Sasha Banks at SummerSlam, we're gonna get it, and like I said last week, I hope we actually get a genuine finish to this match. So guys, that was Raw. That was my Raw review. A really good show, I would say, apart from Raw Underground and Retribution. They have completely messed up those two things already after a week. I just don't know with the WWE sometimes. I just do not know. But the WWE Championship feud has really come to life with Randy Orton punting Ric Flair. We now know the Raw Women's Championship match for SummerSlam, Sasha Banks versus Asuka. The tag team match is set. The US Championship match is set. And I'm sure we are going to get a few more matches on the card. So the Raw side of things is looking like it is good to go. Guys, if you enjoyed this review, like I said earlier, please hit the thumbs up button, give us a like. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you get notified anytime I drop a new video. WrestleManiac UK signing out, and I'll see you soon.